Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. And I am home from the restaurant show in Chicago. I've got lots to talk to you about that at a later date to recap everything that I saw. I am excited to bring you today Miss Maya Tomasello, who's the owner, innkeeper, and chef at the Inn Berlin in Eastern Maryland, where I used to grow up. But I'm excited to bring you to her because this is Celiac Disease Awareness Month, and Maya has celiac disease, and everything that she serves at her inn is gluten free. So I'm excited to introduce you to her and talk to her about gluten free and celiac. So hello, Maya.
Hey, Tracy. Thank you.
You're welcome. Um, so what? How long have you been living with celiac disease?
So I was diagnosed right after I turned 18 in 2009. So this January will be my 15-year mark. And so it's been a long time.
Yep.
I remember back then it was a lot harder. There weren't as many options. Being in college with celiac disease was a whole other story. Um, and nowadays it's just, we've gone leaps and bounds, and we still have a long way to go, but things have gotten so much better for people with celiac and other allergies and autoimmune issues that require special diets.
How did you, and I was telling you this before we went live, that on the Today Show this morning, Dylan Dreyer, who is one of the weather people, announced that her 6-year-old son was just diagnosed with celiac, and they were talking about his symptoms. It was stomach pains, and his hair was falling out, and he had earaches and things like that. And it took months to diagnose it. Did you have similar symptoms, or how did that come about?
So I think that I had undiagnosed celiac for most of my life before my diagnosis. Um, we didn't find out until I turned 18 and my oldest sister was 20. She actually was the one that um, instigated us both going to the doctor for testing. Her blood tests came back positive before mine, and then we both
Oh,
had the
wow.
endoscopies to confirm. So we both have celiac. And it was something where, and her symptoms were completely different than mine, but we both definitely
Really?
struggled. Yeah. So I had more of like the GI issues. I
Mm-hmm.
always had an upset stomach. It was funny because my parents used to joke that I went to the nurse's office every single day as a kid because I had an upset stomach. Um, and it was kind of like a haha, but it really
Right.
wasn't a haha. um, and I was like living on ibuprofen and just having horrible migraines. Her and I are both quite short, when both of our parents are quite tall. So we definitely had that stunted growth. And then she had a lot more of like the mental brain fog. She had, issues with like ADHD, some
Wow.
depression, just like a lot more of the mental aspect. And
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, and we both had GI problems just our whole lives. And we thought it was normal. And then turns out it wasn't.
Right. So did your mom convert her kitchen completely gluten free at that point?
She did not. So I was leaving for college in 6 months after my diagnosis, and my sister was
Mm-hmm.
already at school, living out of the home. I'm the youngest of five, so I was the last kid. And we were fleeing the coop. So they did not convert the house. Their home is still not gluten free, but when we visit, we have tubs of our own like cookware and items that we
Mm-hmm.
use, like I will only use when I'm there.
Right.
And they do a really good job now. It did take a long time for them to kind of come around to the seriousness of it, but now they do a really good job of understanding things need to be separate, can't have airborne flour, can't do, when I'm visiting, there's some things you got to do for me, or else I can't visit for as long as I'd like.
Right. Well, and based on the reviews of your inn, you should just be doing the baking at the house anyways.
Well, yeah, I definitely do. But when I go and visit, I want a break.
Well,
That's a
that's true. That makes
vacation.
sense. That makes
And my
complete
parents are
sense.
both fabulous cooks. They really are so wonderful. My dad has always been an amazing cook. and my mom too, but definitely as we got older, my dad started doing a lot more. And he's the one who every weekend is trying new recipes. And he got very interested in trying to convert recipes to be gluten free that previously weren't. Um, so, yeah, they definitely get it now. That's for sure.
Well, that's good. If I posted the link to the Today Show, but Dylan realized that this is a humongous change. I'm like, she actually, in an article I think I read in People Magazine, was saying that, she took stuff, she bleached it, she put it in the dishwasher because she wanted to remove the cross contamination in the house completely.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, especially for
it's
such a
challenging.
young child,
Hmm.
it's a
Yeah.
lot more difficult, I think, for them to be able to kind of advocate for themselves at that age. So the parents really
Hmm.
have to step up and make the house safe because that's their safe place.
Right, exactly. So tell us about the inn, where it's on the eastern shore of Maryland, which, it's a great beach area in Maryland. So tell us about the inn, and then how did it come about, and what you did to make it 100% gluten free, or why you chose to do that. I mean, I know why you
Sure.
chose to do it, but yeah.
So the inn is located in Berlin, Maryland, the Inn Berlin. Um, we're about 15 minutes away from Ocean City, so we're just a little bit
Okay.
inland. And we're 15 minutes away from Salisbury, Maryland, so we're kind of right in the
Hmm.
heart of it. Super easy drive from Baltimore, Philly, DC. We get a lot of people that come from those cities, particularly. Actually, I had a lot of New Yorkers here this past weekend.
Oh wow.
But basically, the whole East Coast. This is like a
Hmm.
destination spot for people to come for vacation. Uh, and it's a little bit less chaotic than Ocean City, as I'm sure you
Yes.
know. More
Yes.
calm, quiet
Hmm.
town, but we have like events every weekend, farmers market. So it's really fun to visit. Um, the inn started, so in 2020, COVID happened. I was managing a fine dining Italian restaurant, which closed and was not opening for the foreseeable future. So I was like, what am I going to do? My husband luckily works for himself, so we didn't have to kind of worry about him, but I needed something for myself. And my in laws stumbled upon this property while him and I were out on a road trip. And they were like, hey, when you guys get back to Maryland, you need to go look at this place. So the property was for sale. We came and toured it. It needed a lot of work. It was in pretty rough shape, but the bones were there. It was a bread and breakfast prior, so there were the 5 rooms, the 5 bathrooms. It was kind of all set up, ready to go. And there was a huge commercial kitchen, which immediately was like, oh, I could do something in there. So we ended up pulling the trigger and jumped into the situation. We moved here, so we live on site full time, and we took about 8 months to renovate the property and make it what we wanted it to be. A lot of paint, decor, mostly cosmetic, and then we did a lot of work on the outside with landscaping. Hardscaping, just making it more of like a spot where people would want to relax. And then, of
Hmm.
course, I had to tackle that kitchen, so I had to replace pretty much everything in there. Because they left the property was left fully furnished with everything in it.
Oh
So
wow.
we did a huge estate sale, got rid of the things that weren't salvageable or that we didn't want to keep. And then I kind of went crazy on Webstron store and just got, all new plates, cutlery, silverware, like everything new. Because as you know, when you have celiac disease, some items you cannot use that have already been in contact with gluten. So,
Right.
yeah, I recently just got a brand new convection oven, which I'm super excited about. And that's kind of just taking things like from here to there. Um,
Uh-huh.
and we had to get like a new commercial dishwasher, everything. So, yeah, it was definitely a lot of work. But this is our third year now. We're going into our third summer, and things are great. Can't complain.
Awesome. Very cool. And I mean, it makes sense that you chose to make everything that you serve at the end 100% gluten free so that you could be around it. I mean, because you are the chef and the innkeeper
Exactly.
and the owner, right? So, how has were you, and in the one article that I found, and I actually found you through an Instagram post, but the article said that your gluten-free menu is actually becoming one of the attractions of the
Definitely.
inn.
I would say probably between 60 to 75% of our guests come because we are dedicated gluten-free.
Wow.
We also have a lot of folks that come because we do focus on accommodating special diets in general. So before a guest even arrives, I send out a questionnaire asking for food preferences, dietary restrictions, just, so that I know, because I'm not going to make somebody something that A, they can't eat, or B, they don't want to eat. Food waste is a real deal, and I'm not going to serve somebody something that's just going to get thrown in the trash.
Mhm.
So it's really important to me to make sure that our menu is bespoke and customized to our guests. And being 100% gluten free, like as you said, kind of was a no brainer for me.
Right.
I'm in the kitchen every day. There's airborne flour. It's just not something I didn't want to mess with anything that I personally can't eat. And I know
Right.
there's a market for it. So it definitely worked out well.
Well, and I love the fact that on some of the reviews of the end, it's like, oh my God, we didn't even know it was gluten free. Or my husband brought me here because it's gluten free, and he loved the food, and that's a testament. Because
Definitely. And that's one of the best compliments that I can receive as a chef, just that the food's so good, you would never know that something was different or altered or, you know, quote unquote, not
right,
normal. Um, yeah. And my favorite thing that I love is that when we started off, and I did it strategically with my marketing and when I created the website, is that I made it pretty difficult for people to see that we were dedicated gluten free. You kind of have to search, you got to read through our FAQs, you got to click a link to then go to a page that says all
hmm
about it. But I didn't want this to be a spot that limited anybody from staying just because of preconceptions about gluten
right.
free food. Yeah, so I'm really happy that I made that choice. And moving forward, obviously, we do a lot more promoting of it being gluten free now that every single Google review is like celiac, gluten free. So it's not something we're hiding. It's just
Right.
definitely, I don't want people to not stay just because of that.
Right, exactly. And then I have a friend who owns a restaurant, Posana's in Asheville, and it's
Oh,
not
wow.
listed on their menu. And his wife is celiac, and so
Right. They're
everything is
dedicated.
gluten free. They're dedicated, and but he doesn't promote it. It's not anywhere on the website. The server tells you when they, or the host tells you when they bring
Mhm.
you to your table.
I'm dying to
So,
go there, by the way. We're planning a Nashville trip for the fall.
oh, good, yeah, you definitely need to go see, and I can introduce you to them.
That's
Peter,
awesome.
if you're listening, I'm going to tag you, and you need to meet her. No, it's delicious. So, and Asheville's got a lot of good options too. But so I think that's really important, because when we talk about inclusion, we want to make sure everybody has got something that they can eat, but that's delicious at the same time. And a person who doesn't have celiac, or doesn't have celiac, or isn't gluten free, can eat delicious food. So
Right.
no
Anywhere they
matter what
want,
it's
anytime.
right.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So what, as a chef doing this, how does the lack of understanding outside of the inn, and when you go out to eat, um, we talked previously before we got on here about the lack of understanding, training, and compassion for this market. What can you talk about that a little bit?
Definitely. So I've been working in restaurants since I was 14 years old. I started at a gelato place I was a barista, I scooped gelato, I made little truffles. I mean, I did everything. I cleaned the toilets, like they had us doing everything. And then from there, I worked in various restaurants, front of house and back of house. And just throughout my experiences prior to diagnosis and then post diagnosis, um, I met a lot of people who just kind of had no clue. And it wasn't that it was coming from a place of malice or just not wanting to be accommodating. It was coming from a place of, I have no idea what I need to do to make sure you can eat here. So I'm just going to say, sorry, we can't help you. Um,
Hmm.
and so I kind of ran into that quite often over the past 15 or so years. And it's really disheartening because not every restaurant has to be dedicated gluten-free to be able to serve people with celiac or with allergies. They just have to know what it requires. They have to have the proper training. Staff needs to communicate from the minute that patron steps foot in the restaurant, from the host to the server to the manager to the back of house to the kitchen. Like everybody kind of needs to be on the same page.
Right.
And they need to have a protocol in place for when this particular patron sits down and wants to eat.
Right.
And I find that that disconnect between server and kitchen is kind of where a lot of things go awry.
Right.
Because as a customer, you're not going to get up and walk back in the kitchen and say, "Hey, you need to use a clean pan. You need to make sure you're changing your gloves." Like those are the things that the restaurant needs to, from the management down, needs to communicate to their staff and make it a point that it's serious.
Right.
So I definitely think there are a lot of places that are getting better at it. It's becoming something that, more people are just aware of and want to
Right.
accommodate, but we still have a long way to go.
We do. I mean, and just and talk being at a variety of different conventions in the food in the food world. There's you walk down aisles and I'm like, they're like, do you want a taste of that? And I'm like, well, can you tell me what's in it? And they're like, and somebody describes the food to me. I'm like, that's great. That's not the
The
ingredients.
ingredients, yeah.
And I want to know that. And I went to one convention and one whole aisle. The only people who could tell me what the allergens were in their food was the Idaho potatoes booth. And
Yeah,
I'm like, and she had a brochure that listed, this contains dairy, this contains soy, and it wasn't very many of them, but at least she had a document to share with me. Yeah.
right. And you know how we were talking before we went live about prepackaged foods that I really like?
Right.
It just popped in my head. I like Boar's Head a lot because
Yeah.
all of their meats, all of their cheeses are gluten-free. And
Right.
they're very clear with all of their marketing materials and ingredients and everything, what's in their food. So
Right.
other companies could take notes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And and they made that choice to do that, which is awesome. I mean, unfortunately, we see in the news, and now we're talking about celiac, but with the sesame thing, people are automatically or purposely adding sesame flour to their mixes now, so they don't have to clean their equipment between it. So, which is frustrating. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
So how? Okay, so you said 60% of your 60 to 75% of your guests are gluten free or coming there because of that destination. Um, how well I forgot where I wanted to go with that question. And you weren't marketing to them, specifically, but I know you've had some Instagram visitors that are celiac, et
Yes.
cetera, that have helped with that. But to that non-market, what is your selling point with the food that you're serving? How's that? Yeah.
I guess our selling point with the non-celiac gluten-free community, just the regular tourists coming to the Eastern Shore for a vacation, is just that we're in a really cool small town. We're a, modern yet luxurious bed and breakfast. We do a gourmet breakfast. It's very much like just a destination.
Okay.
There's no real advertising to them about the food except that farm to table, we try really hard to get most of our ingredients from local producers. So we're on the Eastern Shore. There's tons of farms. There's tons of produce, eggs, chicken, pork, everything that you can find within like 15 minutes of here, which is amazing.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And we have a really great farmers market every weekend where we have like over 40 local vendors that show up with their produce. I'm actually doing a partnership this year with a local farmer who lives a mile down the road, and she has a micro farm in her backyard. And she does, all kinds of produce, vegetables, fruit, and it's just a really great way to know where your food comes from. So I think people
Mhm.
appreciate that for sure,
Right.
that it's like kind of small business focused.
Right.
But definitely, yeah, I don't really market to them based on the food. It's more
Right.
this is a great spot to stay. We also are pretty lucky that in our area, there's one other bed and breakfast and one hotel. So there aren't that many places really to stay.
So, well, that helps, and then you're surprising and delighting them with the food that you're serving. So what is the favorite? What's your favorite thing to make, but what's also your guest's favorite thing to eat?
Okay. So my favorite thing to make. So for breakfast, it's interesting because I do two courses. So the first course is when the guest sits down, they get their coffee or their tea. There's water and a choice of juice. So we usually have 4 to 5 different juices, fresh pressed, that we'll serve, and
Wow.
then they'll get a yogurt with fruit on top, and they'll get a sweet. So every day I make a different sweet. And then after that is the savory course. Well, they'll get something savory, egg-based usually, or with like protein,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So savory, I love eggs Benedict. That's my favorite breakfast. So
Uh-huh.
I make that probably once or twice a week. Um, yeah, really, really solid breakfast, and most people love it, especially if they've never had it before, because I
Right.
guess it's not like a super common thing.
Right.
But yeah, everyone's like, "Oh, I didn't know hollandaise tasted like that." And I'm like, "Well, it's not coming from a bag. It's not a mix. It's homemade,
Uh-huh.
so it definitely tastes really good." Um, and then for sweet and also bread, like everybody loves the homemade bread. That's definitely a huge thing because, most people don't make bread at home or have
Right.
access to fresh bread. They'll get like prepackaged grocery store brands. Um,
Right.
and I would say for the sweet, people have been really, really loving cinnamon rolls lately. Anytime
Okay.
I make donuts, those are really popular because it's like fried yeasted donuts. Um, hmm. I do a lot of bread puddings. People like bread
Mm-hmm.
pudding, savory and sweet.
Right.
Um, but yeah, definitely a big variety.
That's awesome. And is breakfast the only meal that you provide?
No, so we have a bunch of like add-ons that guests can
Okay.
put into their reservation. We do charcuterie and cheese boards. We do packed lunches. We do celebration cakes. So if you're coming for like a birthday or an anniversary, you can order a cake ahead of time, to be in your room. And I'll ask the guest, tell me a couple flavors you like, just so I'm making something they like. Um,
Right.
the most popular is chocolate. Everybody likes chocolate cake.
I
Um,
don't. I love
Yeah,
yellow cake.
them well, yellow cake's popular too, but I the most requested is always chocolate or lemon. Get a lot of lemon
Oh,
cake.
okay.
I know. It's
Very.
like the things that I mean, I'm not a chocolate person myself. I don't really do chocolate. Um,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, I make it a
Yeah.
lot. And yeah, and we do private dinners. And
Okay.
that's something that guests are booking very far in advance. Because of changing circumstances, we are going to be having some minor changes in the fall with how often we're offering the private dinners.
Okay.
It'll still be by request, but we're probably going to be leaning more towards like once a week versus
Okay.
whenever. So yeah, and private
Yeah.
dinners are fun because I get to make the menu with the guest. And this weekend, for example, we're doing private dining on Friday, and the guests really wanted fried onion rings and shrimp. And they don't get it at home, so they're like, "Will you make me onion rings and shrimp?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that."
Oh, that's so cool. Now, do you before so everybody to tell everybody you have 10 you can sleep 10 people, is that right? So 5
So we have
bedrooms?
5 rooms. Yep, 5 rooms. Each
Okay.
room is double occupancy, so 10 people max. And then when we do whole house rentals, um, we can have a maximum of 10 people, and that can include children as well.
Okay. Awesome. And then so the dinners, are those just for the people who are staying at the inn, or people outside staying at the inn can come to those dinners?
So people outside of the inn that are just like public, they can come for the dinners that are already scheduled, or they can book a dinner with 6+ people. We won't do it for
Okay.
any less than that. But if it's just, one room that's 2 guests, we'll do it for people that are
Right.
on site overnight.
Okay. So you have a big enough space to do a group.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
well we
Yeah.
do weddings here as well and private
Okay.
events.
Awesome.
We can host up
Okay.
to 60. So
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a nice, quaint wedding. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
too big, not too crazy.
So what do you, well, I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but that other chefs, hotels, what do you wish they knew about celiac? You did say, you know, you don't have to have a certified gluten-free or allergen-free venue. What can you share with them about your experience, you know, pre-opening your own place,
Right.
knowing that you had celiac disease, you know, between then and now? Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say the biggest thing that I wish they knew is first off, we don't want to eat salad. That's like, because that's always the, oh, well, they can have
Yeah.
a salad, just lettuce and balsamic and oil, and you're fine. No, that's not
Right.
a meal.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay to go somewhere and eat a salad. I'll just have a, a water and go eat somewhere else. Um, I really wish that chefs in general would know that if you know about cross contamination, cross contact, you are able to create a meal that is safe for someone. Proper hygiene, cleanliness, washing hands, gloves, clean pans, clean utensils, knowing that you can't share certain items like wooden spoons, spatulas, those sorts of items, strainers, colanders, like can't use the same pasta water for gluten-free and gluten pasta, like those kinds of things that just kind of, to me, are very obvious, but aren't
Hmm.
so obvious to people who don't know. Um,
Right.
I just wish that every chef would get a course on it. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, and somebody sent me a picture from a convention that they're at in California, and they have, and it was a nuts thing, but they had the nuts and the no nuts. I think they were on separate trays, but they were right next to each other, right? And
Yeah.
so those tongs the people are going to use, they're going to use it for both of them.
Right. Well, and
Yeah,
that's a whole nother monster. It's buffet style dining because
yeah,
not only are you depending on, the chefs to put the food out and make sure it's safe then, but then you're also depending on regular people who are serving themselves to know that, which
right.
they don't. Um,
No,
yeah, and the other thing I think is so strange about buffets is like when they put bacon out, they'll put bread underneath it to soak up the grease. And it's
I
like,
know.
why? Just use a wire.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I
There's
did
no
an
other
event
way.
yeah, I did an event in Atlanta, and the my guest who was allergic to wheat, you know, went to go get the bacon, and he noticed the bread underneath it. And this was probably 15 years ago, but or maybe not quite that long ago. And I'm like, wow. And I didn't know that. And because it's usually hidden
Yeah,
underneath the pile of bacon. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's so much room for knowledge and just
Hmm.
improvement across the board for all different allergies and
Hmm.
restrictions. But, for celiac, we don't have a choice. This isn't a fad diet. Um, there's no cure. There's nothing we can do
Right.
but eat gluten-free. Um, and I think for some, it's kind of tough to just like wrap their head around that when so many people choose to eat gluten-free because it's healthier or, you
Right.
know, on trend. Um,
Right.
yeah, so it's definitely hard to go into a restaurant and be taken seriously when you say that you have to eat gluten free. I usually throw allergy out when I am dining out as well. Allergy, 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 very serious. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I try. I really do. There aren't that many restaurants locally to me that I trust. So
Right.
I definitely, and for my guests as well, like I'll send them dining recommendations because we are a safe place, but we're not, we can't be everything to everyone. And I know that people want to go out and eat dinner and enjoy and have that
Right.
social aspect as well. So I'll say I'll send them this PDF that I created and I'll say these are places that I personally will eat at that I trust. If you're willing to drive 45 minutes away, there's so many more options. And I try to keep a dialogue with our local restaurants that are walking distance just to make sure that they know. And I think that they're getting better about it because actually, I just got off the phone with one of them this morning who a week ago got a new fryer, dedicated gluten-free fryer for French fries and chicken wings. which is a big
Yay!
deal because
Yeah.
beforehand they didn't have one. They didn't tell me this though. I had a guest who was staying with me who dined there on Saturday night, came to breakfast Sunday morning, and they're like, "Yeah, we went to that spot, and guess what? The French fries are gluten-free." And I'm like, "Are you sure? Like they're in a," and he's like, "Yeah, they said they just got a dedicated fryer." And so of course I had to call to verify this. But like, it's a big deal. That's something.
Right. Yeah,
And I
it
think they're
is.
taking note because they're saying how many people are staying here and then spending their money in town and wanting to enjoy.
I love that. I love that story, and I
Yeah,
want to get back to that in a second. Allergy Dragon piped in here. Just use a drain pan. It's so obvious. I hate the bread thing on the bacon.
so true.
um, yes, very true. And that's Martha. She's a chef herself as well. But so many things came out of what you just said to me, and for the fact that you're an innkeeper, you're making recommendations to other places that you trust to eat at. You're partnering with, you're calling up and talking to other restaurateurs about doing that. I mean, to me, that's a huge opportunity for sales, cross sales, and allowing those businesses to grow. I mean, the fact that that restaurant just bought a dedicated gluten-free fryer, now they've got this opportunity for new customers to come in.
Well, it's funny
And
because
yeah.
they do, but in that same conversation, so in one breath, we have a dedicated fryer now, it's for gluten-free things. In the other breath, oh, well, we're still not going to advertise that things are gluten-free and that we do this. And I'm like, well, okay, that's up to you for sure. But, you know, it would be really helpful for people that want to go out to eat to know that
Mhm.
that's an option.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and it's like, and I'm reviewing catering menus and restaurant menus, and if it's not labeled, I'm having to spend so much extra time trying to
right.
figure it out, and I might not choose you because it's not labeled. And if
Mhm.
you've got the capabilities of doing it, why not tell people?
Yeah,
Yeah, so that you get that business, because you might lose the
right.
business because I don't know. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I definitely think that some restaurants are taking notes. Some of
Hmm.
them are having more options. The issue with consistency is still very much an issue. I have had
Hmm.
guests have fabulous experiences at some local restaurants, and then I've had guests who come back and say, I got sick. And it's like the onus is always on the customer to speak up for themselves and say what they need, but it's also on the restaurant to provide a consistent service and make sure that the food is coming out the same every time. And in this particular instance, it was the reason that the customer got sick is because the chef changed the recipe for the soup that day. There was multiple chefs.
Hmm.
It's normally made gluten free. That one day in particular, the chef of the day used wheat as a thickener for the soup
Rather than what do they normally use?
rather than cornstarch.
Okay.
He used wheat
Wow.
flour. Yeah, and it's like, something as small as that
Right.
ruined somebody's weekend and,
Right.
caused them a lot of pain and distress. And if it was me, I'd be in the hospital. So that's
Right.
like not okay.
Yeah, and especially if you've been there before and you know that it has been gluten free in the past, but that also reiterates the fact that like you said, we have to ask the questions and we have to advocate for ourselves
Right.
and have them check and double check.
And it
Yeah.
can be a really awkward conversation too, because when you're going
Hmm.
out to eat, you don't want to have to grill your server, who's then going to have to go
Right.
back and grill the kitchen, who's also got five other tables. And it's a
Right.
hard place to speak up for yourself, but it's definitely necessary. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot that could be
So
said about that.
right, exactly. Have you had, I mean, I'm sure you've had in 15 years a bad experience eating out at a restaurant. Are there any in particular that really threw you for a loop?
Yeah, so I'm very cautious as a diner. I really I try not to stray away from places that I know for sure 100% can take care of me. we were recently in January, we were in Italy traveling for a month. My husband's Italian, so we were
Nice.
visiting his family. We were kind of driving around all over. Um, we use the AIC app, which is a Italian specific app for restaurants that are certified through their it's a national certification
Oh,
program in
wow.
Italy for restaurants
Hmm.
to say that yes, they have training, they can provide safe food free of cross contact. Um, for our assurance, they take it very seriously over there. So I really
Right.
was like, okay, I can trust this list, whatever. So we had fabulous, we ate out every single night. So that's,
Wow.
26 meals, right? And
Right.
on the 27th meal, we went to a restaurant on that list that um glutenized me. Basically, I said I have celiac, this is what I need. They're like, of course, we do this all the time. We have a separate kitchen. We have this, separate spaces, different pizza ovens. Something got lost in translation. I don't know what. And they served me something that was gluten, like literal gluten. Um,
Uh-huh.
I ended up I'm the kind of celiac that ends up in the hospital because I pass out.
Wow.
And I have like the
Wow.
severe stomach pains, I just constantly throwing up. Like I need IVs for fluids at that point. And it was on my birthday. So there's another one.
Oh,
That's a particularly rough story. But yeah, I ended up in the hospital, spent the next 3 days laying in bed. Luckily, we were staying with our family, so I wasn't like in a hotel or anything.
right.
And I could just like lay there and somebody could watch my child. So that was good. But it was like a very sore way to end our trip. Um,
Right.
because you have 26 fabulous experiences and then that one bad one just and I'm still how many months later? 4 months later, I'm still having joint pain, brain fog, like there's still those
Wow.
symptoms are there. Yeah, and the worst part, it was bad to get sick. It was really bad, but the worst part is that afterwards I contacted the restaurant. I said, "Hey, this is what happened here. I want to let you guys know. Um, can you kind of explain what you think might have happened?" And they're like, "No, sorry." I wrote a review on Google, and their response to my review was, "It happens. Just, it
Oh my.
happens." Yeah. And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So I contacted the AIC, the
Uh-huh.
certification program that they're involved in, and I'm like, "This restaurant needs to be removed. Like they don't get it." And they said they would look into it. I haven't followed up. It's been a couple months. I probably should, but I was just at that point like livid, like how is this okay?
Wow. Hmm.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
would say, and that's the most since 2020, no, since like 2014, that's the most recent time I got sick because I'm
Oh,
so
wow.
well, because
Yeah.
I take it, I don't eat out very often, and luckily I'm a chef, so I cook for myself. But like
Right.
when I do eat out, I'm eating out at places that are like, okay, it's going to be like slim to none that something happens to me because of that serious after effect.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it was
I mean,
probably like 8 years between instances of me being hospitalized for that.
wow. And I know that it happens, does happen, but for that to be their response
Right.
is unprofessional and
Oh, yeah.
not taking the responsibility. And I mean, accidents do happen, but that clearly was
Yeah. Take
not, yeah,
accountability,
right.
apologize, say that
Exactly.
you're going to reevaluate your steps that you take when someone something.
Right.
Or
Exactly.
throw me
Yeah.
a bone, but yeah, it was the
Yeah.
response was like, "What?"
Well,
So,
yeah, I would be quite livid as well. So
suffice to
with
say, I
all
will
of
not be recommending that place ever.
no, exactly. Exactly. And it would be interesting, to see what the A1C, is that what you called it?
AIC,
Yeah.
yes.
AIC, if they ever do come back to you, and or if that restaurant is that still on the list or not.
Yeah.
Um yeah. Because I mean, they're putting their name and they're endorsing that. To me, they're endorsing it if they're putting them through that certification for sure. Yeah.
100%.
Okay, so as a person who a chef who's sourcing her produce locally and her eggs and her pork, and you're providing a dining option for a variety of different people, what does safe, sustainable, and inclusive dining experience mean to you?
It means, it means that anybody can come here or can dine out and sit at a table with their family and eat the same thing as every single person around them. And everybody enjoy their meal and nobody gets sick. So, one of the things that is really important to me is that, again, when I have guests that are normal eaters and guests that are gluten free or vegan or whatever they
Mm-hmm.
may be, they're all getting the same breakfast pretty much, and they're all gonna enjoy it. They're not gonna feel ill. It's gonna be something that's memorable in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that food in general and sharing a meal with someone is like a very social act, and it's something that you want to be able to enjoy and share with others. And
Right.
part of that is having options and making sure that people are taken care of. And it's truly like a show of love and compassion to be able to feed people. And that's why I love what I do, because that's how it's like my love language is cooking for people. Um, and I just wish that other people who are in the industry would do the same, and use it kind of as a way to show compassion and empathy and respect for everybody.
Right.
So
No, I
yeah,
love that story. Yeah, and love the fact that you said cooking for people is my love language, and we all have to eat, and we
we all
want to
have
be
to.
loved.
Yeah,
We want to be loved with the food that we're eating, and we want the food that we are eating to love us, right? Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I do love how supporting local businesses.
Hmm.
There's so many farmers, purveyors, artisans that make things that are fabulous that aren't, in big box stores, aren't, getting that
Right.
kind of name brand recognition, but that are so deserving. And especially the women-owned businesses, because as a women-owned business here, like we got to help each other.
Right.
um, and so it's really nice to see kind of the community rally together, um, to collaborate. So,
Right.
yeah.
No, I love that. That's very cool. I need to introduce you to a woman. She runs a company called Fab. It's down in Charleston, and it's females and business in the food and beverage,
Okay.
also females in that. Yeah, I'll introduce you to her,
Very
Randy
cool.
Weinstein. Okay, so I know you're a chef. Actually, we got a comment up here. Let's see who this is. Here's Martha
Yay.
again piping
We'd love to
in.
have you.
If we love people cook them tasty food, I know where I will be staying on my trip to visit my sister. Yes, definitely. I'm going
Thank
to
you.
come with you on that trip. Um, so when you're not cooking for yourself, what is your favorite, or even if you're cooking for yourself, what is your favorite food and beverage to eat? We'll end on that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, so I love kind of all Asian foods. I love Thai, Japanese, Chinese. I worked for a stint during my undergrad at a Chinese restaurant, and I learned kind of how to make all of the wonderful, delicious Americanized Chinese foods. Um,
Uh-huh.
and so that's definitely something I really enjoy. I also love good Israeli Middle Eastern food because that's kind of the food of my childhood. Um, like you can't go wrong with delicious falafel or pita, hummus, or just everything and all the different salads. Like it's so healthy and bright and colorful, but
Mm-hmm.
it all tastes so good. Um, yeah, and beverage wise, when I am drinking, I love beer, gluten-free beer, obviously. There's
Right.
some really wonderful dedicated breweries, all along the like the East Coast, but specifically, we partner with one that's based out of Baltimore called BC Brewery, and they just come up with fabulous gluten-free beers, ciders, and we
Awesome.
exclusively carry them here at the inn. So it's really nice to have
Awesome.
those options. And as a beer
Right.
drinker, you don't want to have to be stuck with like the 3 kinds of gluten-free beer you can find at the grocery store. So it's
Right.
nice to get a stout. It's nice to try an IPA or sour. Like there's all these varietals that, as someone who was diagnosed at 18 and had only had Natty Light and Bud Light, prior to diagnosis, it's
That's
nice
me
to be able
too.
to, yeah, it's nice to be able
Yeah.
to try like actual beer with depth of flavor.
Right. Oh, that's a really good way to say it, with depth of flavor. We want our food to
Yeah,
have depth of flavor, but our
for
beer
sure.
too. Yeah. Yeah. I stopped drinking altogether. So, but yeah, that's a really good point. And I do joke that I drank too much Natty Light in college, that that's the way I am now. I don't have any idea that it's true. So don't say Natty Light. Don't think that I'm saying that, but it does have gluten in it. So,
It does.
Maya, thank you so much. I think you're making a world of difference for so many people who are coming to stay in Berlin and staying with you in Berlin.
Thank you so much. It's truly a pleasure, and I love what I do, and I'm just happy to be here and be going into a very successful 3rd year.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody, I'm going to put your Instagram handle up there, but how do they book reservations? And are you full for the summer already, or do you still have availability?
We still have availability. You definitely have to just check the calendar and look around because some dates will be
Hmm.
full, especially holiday weekends. We book up pretty quickly. Um, we're actually, a lot of weekends in October are filling up right now because here on the Eastern Shore, kind of October is that month where you're still getting beautiful weather, but a lot of the
Hmm.
tourism aspects kind of die down. So it's like a perfect time to be here and enjoy. So
Hmm.
definitely check out our website, click the link to book, and look at our calendar. And we'd love to host anyone and everyone.
And do you have openings for weddings as well?
We do still have openings for wedding in 2024. So starting
Oh,
2024,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
we're pretty much booked up for weddings for this year. We are still taking some smaller events, like we do a lot of baby showers, bridal showers,
Okay.
luncheons, those sorts of things.
Okay. Awesome. I need to get in my Mini Cooper, put the top down, and drive up to you,
There you go.
along the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and just come up
Oh,
that
that's
way.
scary.
Yeah. It's a low bridge. It's not the big one, the low
No, but
one.
it's long. It's low and
It's
long.
very long. Yeah, it's very long. Yes. I did it 2 summers ago. Yeah. So it's fun. But okay. Well, thank you so much for being here and providing such a delicious opportunity for people to visit the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I was going to say North
Thank
Carolina,
you.
Eastern Shore of Maryland. You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Everybody, it is still Celiac Awareness Month, so check it out. I put a link to the Today Show story on that today, or that was posted earlier today. But and it is also Food Allergy Awareness Month. And next Wednesday, I'm talking to a doctor about food allergies. So stay tuned. We will be here Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern. And until next time, stay safe and eat well.